What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be our final video on the 6th gen Camaro here. We just did a video on the wing install and the splitter. Link below to both of those. So here's our splitter. And today, I probably should have set this up before I started doing anything. We're going to be doing our side plates, which is this guy, and our Canards. And also this little piece right here is a air curtain blocker. And just so you can see it done already on this side, Canards side plate and air curtain blocker right here. I'll get into what this does in a minute. But yeah, this is going to round out the Aero package for our 6th gen Camaros. All of these will be upgrade options with the splitter, or you can get them as individual pieces as well. Link to all these parts in the description below as well. Alright, so very first thing we're going to do is mark our holes. Obviously a silver Sharpie is a little bit easier. And the curve of this side plate here perfectly matches the curve of the splitter. So that kind of tells you where you need to position it. Now, one thing to note, since we make these splitter blades in-house, if you have some sort of class rules and the splitter's a little bit shorter, this side plate will just kind of slide back a little bit. Hope that makes sense. If you got something super short, then you might have to get into like cutting. But effectively, this is how it's going to go. And then once you have them all marked, time to drill. Now the splitter has a structural foam core inside of it. It's about a 1/2 inch thick. You do not need to drill completely through. We're only going to drill just through the top layer of carbon. And it's always a good idea to vacuum carbon dust versus just letting it fly all over. Alright, so now we're going to open the holes up to the final rivet size, which is a 5/32 drill. And then at this point, it's as simple as just riveting it on. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, the side plates will come with all the rivets that you need. And now for what we call, this little piece we call the tire deflector, because it kind of deflects air from hitting, the tire. This is the side plate. But as far as lining it up, kind of just get it like right against the corner of the splitter. Kind of about touches the air dam right here. I don't know, about a 2-finger gap. What's that, about 1 inch or so? Make your marks and install it just like the side plates. Pretty simple. Alright guys, so with the tire deflector in, side plate on, that little project is done. You can see pretty quick and easy there. Now we're going to move on to Canards. We're going to start with the lower. And as far as location or placement, there should be an area on the bumper where the Canard, you just feel it like fit. Very nice. We made the flange off of this bumper. Now, it may not be like 100% perfect because, a plastic bumper, if you just push on it, you know what I mean? Like it could just have a slightly different, I'll call it like a tweak to it or something. I'll give you some actual measurements in a minute. So all I'm doing right now is just kind of finding that spot where it just really nestles against the bumper. And that feels about good. There's a bit of a body line here that helps you line up here. There's a little bit of a notch right here for this part of the bumper. And like honestly, right about there feels good. The other thing you want to take into account, like the very front leading edge of this should be, I'll call it perfectly like level. So when the air hits it, you don't get just like a separation edge right off this bottom here. Honestly, that right there feels about good. All right, time to drill. One thing to note, before you just start drilling through, because you do have like a cooler and stuff back here, if you have some aftermarket cooler, if you're line routing, whatever, just kind of always check behind your bumper before you drill. All right, now the hardware that these come with is a coarse thread screw and what we call a quick nut. What's kind of cool about these is once you get them started, you know, they're relatively loose, but the sharp corners of the quick nut, once they just lightly touch the backside of the bumper, they basically self-lock, and all you got to do is just turn them from the outside. No reaching behind with like a wrench or anything like that, like a typical nut and bolt. All right, so I'm just going to start with this back one because it's easiest just to kind of get going. Just lightly holding that quick nut with my fingers. And then I'm going to leave it loose, so that way we got a little bit of wiggle room to get everything else lined up. There's a good amount of room behind these bumpers, so they should be fairly easy to get once you drill all your holes. What I'm doing now is I can actually see through the hole that we drilled, so I know I'm lined up and just getting them started. Alright, so now that they're all started and I know that they're snug, we got a tiny little bit of wiggle. Redo. Alright, so now that they're all started and just the least bit snug, like I mentioned earlier, you can just turn them from the outside to tighten them. Alright, so now on to the upper. This car had, I believe they were like ZL1 style Canards, so you can see the original holes all the way, even all the way out here. Funny enough, if you have those, the front hole on ours actually works pretty well. So we're going to use that front hole, and then the rear hole has to fit in this tiny little space between that little marker light and the edge of the bumper. So there isn't much wiggle room on these. So using that front hole and that one, we're going to make our marks and just repeat the process we did on the lower. All right, so we're moving along on the upper, and a quick little alignment trick is on the inside where I put it. You can see the bolt where the screw lands right just above the air curtain. The inner one is there, and the front one is going to be that hole right there. So it'll be a little bit hard to reach in with my hand. So that's where I'm going to hold the quick nut in a pair of needle nose pliers and just kind of reach in where it needs to go. Easy enough. All right, and if you want actual measurements, we need like a known constant location. So we're going to use the corner of the bumper right here. And it's looking to be, well, if we count backwards, about 5 inches to the trailing edge of the upper canard. Lower canard, we'll call that about 10 1/8 or so. Front might be a little bit trickier because there's no real like body line to go off of. I guess from that bolt hole up to the corner here, might be like 7 3/4 or so, 7 1/2. Let's see. And then maybe that front bolt hole to this body line might be about like 10 1/8 or so. You know, that'll kind of get you in the ballpark. All right, guys, so there you go. Canards and our low drag side plates on this 6th Gen SS. Very last thing we're going to squeeze into this video, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to install the air curtain blocker. Now the air curtain blocker, you can actually see that light through there. We're actually seeing like out front. How they're intended to work from the factory, the high pressure air goes through this grill, comes out this skirt right here, and it's supposed to kind of put like a jet across the face of the tire, reducing the car's drag a tiny bit. The problem is, once you go to a wider tire, or as this car you can see, you know, you got wheel spacers, and you move that face of the tire out, now air is just shooting out of here and slamming into the tire face, just kind of building up a little more high pressure in here. As you can see, the exit of your cooler is right there. If you have more high pressure in the wheel well, they don't work as well. And this is something we tested on the GT350. You know, they have a air curtain similar to this. And blocking those off on the GT350, Off the top of my head, at 100 miles an hour, it wasn't huge. It was like 7, 8, 9 pounds of downforce. We did pick up, I think, like 4/10 of a pound of drag, so this isn't a big thing, but we did see a little bit more of a pressure drop across the on the GT350, that left bumper area is the oil cooler. We had pressure probes front and rear, and we saw a little bit of a higher pressure drop, which means we actually gained cooling capacity a little bit as well. So, you know, you start tracking these cars, blocking it off is something super simple to do, and it's pretty much all around a win-win. So we developed one for this car. We're gonna install it real quick. All right, guys, so air curtain blocker, super simple. We're reusing the factory hardware and factory mounting points, these 3. You wanna make sure your fender liner is kind of tucked in behind. There you go, it nestles in that little lip right there. So here's the air curtain blocker. The little notch goes on top. The other side is just a mirror of this. We're gonna reuse the hardware that was out. This little notch kind of leaves room for a Canard screw, that little, you know, there might be some stuff right there. And what you wanna do, get the top and bottom just loosely started. There's enough flex to this, you know, you can just push it to where it needs to go. And you want to make sure you slide it outwards so it stays behind this little lip of the bumper right here. So even though these are loose, you can see how it's kind of staying in place already. There you go, air curtain blocker installed. All right, guys, so there you go. I know this is kind of a quick one. I'm sure I mentioned it earlier. Canards, side plates, air curtain blockers, all on our website, link below. Now, obviously, this is the SS. We do want to do Canards for, you know, 1LEs and, you know, different shaped bumpers. And as we do those in the future, they'll just be listed on the website. We just kind of got to get our hands on a car to do them. So yeah, that's about it for this one. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.